Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 2 of Rising Stories podcast. I'm Corrine Sandifer, your host. This is a show where we talk about what it's like to run a business, to live our lives with intention and purpose. We also talk about books, restaurants, and what makes our life easier as women. Things like our favorite app, time savers, and sometimes we even share some beauty and fashion tips. This week, I'm back in Nashville for another on-location interview with an amazing restaurant owner. Jennifer Masley is the owner of EIO and The Hive. The EIO stands for Everything is Organic. She makes space for people to eat whatever they want in the healthiest way possible. So there's something for everyone there, and I love it. As I walked in for our interview, I was served the most amazing and delicious kombucha. If you don't know what kombucha is, look it up, Google it. There are tons of flavors, so I'm sure you'll find one that you'll love. The minute you walk into the space, you'll feel the stress leaving. That's what happened to me. I just wanted to sit and drink my kombucha and just chill for a long time. Jennifer and I talked about why bees and the hive are so important to her and how we can all bring a little peace and goodness to our own dinner tables. But before we begin, I want to talk to you about podcasts. Podcasts are free and we don't make money just by putting out a podcast. So our bread and butter is our sponsorships. Amazon is our sponsor for Rising Stories podcast. So if you hear about a product or a book that is mentioned here, please use the links provided in the description or visit CorrineSandifer.com/podcast for a complete listing. You can also shop at my Amazon store at amazon.com/shop/Corrine Sandifer. Thanks so much. And now come with me to EIO and The Hive restaurant and let's talk to Jennifer Masley. Hey Jennifer, thanks for letting me come into your awesome restaurant. I walked in and I'm like, this is not just a restaurant, it's like a whole experience. I mean, immediately I'm like, peaceful, there are plants. I loved it.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm so glad that you had that feeling too, because I hear a lot of that from my customers, and that was part of my goal, is to create an experience beyond just the food.
It really is.
Thank you.
I mean, anyone who comes in here, and it's called EIO and The Hive.
Yes.
Now tell me the story. Tell me
the name.
What,
Everyone
the
wants
name.
to know about the name.
Well, I know what the name is. I feel really Nashville now because I do know what the name means. I do know what IEO means, or EIO. Sorry, I said it wrong. EIO.
Okay.
But tell me how this started.
Yeah, absolutely. So EIO is Everything is Organic, and The Hive is a reference to bees. I'm a big fan of them because without them we have very little food. And bees, not only do they produce and pollinate food for us, the way that they work together as an intimate community, and they each have a role and a responsibility, which makes them very high functioning, very productive, and very loving, reminds me of what our community should look like. And so I've studied bees and I'm just a big fan of them, so I was really vacillating between calling it EIO or The Hive, and then one of my business partners said just call it EIO and The Hive. And of course we're in Nashville and it sounds a little bit like a band, so it
does. I love it. Now I thought it was two separate things because I've seen The Hive
yes.
like on products or something. Like I was at a restaurant and they said this tempeh came from The Hive.
Well, interestingly, there are a lot of other companies who are embracing the bee culture. And so there's a bee hive, and we actually use that product here. It's a local Setan company.
That's what it was.
And so, and there are some other, sort of bee reference companies popping up, which I love, because it only then lends itself to the fact that we really do need bees to continue to have food. And we have a crisis with the bees and the pesticides that we're using, and we need to become more aware. And we actually have hives just actually across the street, we lost one of our hives, and we're getting ready. I know it flooded. It was very, very sad. It was like losing a child for me. And so, as a matter of fact, when I was having a day, I would go over and I would watch these bees go in and out of this hive, and I would watch the guard check in, the worker bees, and it's just amazing how they really function. They're just very high functioning, and I've sat and I would meditate and watch them, and the guard would check in the worker bees, and then when the guard's shift was over, a new guard would swoop in. It's very, very fascinating. And then there's the drones and the nurses, and of course the queen bee. So, but we did have a flood. I don't know if you remember late summer, and we lost the hive, which was very sad. So I'm hoping they just relocated. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah. Is that what they do? They probably
do. Yep. We probably lost some of them. Probably drowned, unfortunately. But I'm hoping that the queen relocated. Yeah, that's my hope.
That's really fascinating. And so, when you thought about the hive and bees, was that the beginning of the inception of this restaurant?
It was. I come from the organic juice bar world, so I had 4 of them when I started this project, and the consensus from my customers was, I love what you're doing. We love juice. We love smoothies. We love raw foods. We want more. Okay. And so when I started coming to Nashville, my daughter was at Belmont, and I met my business partners, and we just decided that juice needed food, and to expand the concept of all organic, as locally sourced as possible, back to the basics, really good, basic, healthy comfort food. And so that was the inception, that was the model, and then the name just came very organically and naturally.
Yeah,
so
I love that.
Yeah,
everything is organic.
Yes.
That's nice. Yeah. Well, and because I think you can, you have something for everyone here.
Yes, and I happen to be, I eat 98% vegan. When I'm in the Bahamas, or if my son's a big fisherman, if it's naturally wild caught, if I'm spearing my own lobster, I will eat fish very occasionally, but otherwise I eat mostly vegan. But I didn't want this to be a vegan restaurant because I do believe in inclusivity. I believe that that there's not one diet for everybody. I think it's as much a mental state as a physical state, and everybody's at a different place with their health, and for different reasons. And so for me to say eating vegan is the best way for everyone, I don't think that that's true. And so I really wanted if there's a husband that's vegan and a wife that eats meat, which that happens often, or vice versa, I wanted them to be able to come here together. Yeah. And the importance for me is that it's as locally grown as possible, locally raised, humanely raised, because I believe that the energy that we put out into the world goes into whatever we're touching.
Goes into our bodies.
It does. And so if we're eating meat that has been factory farmed and abused, that is negative energy, and that is we're eating that.
That's very interesting. I wonder if that has anything to do with depression.
I really believe it does. I've done a lot of research.
Autism, maybe, and all those things that are coming up that maybe weren't as prevalent in the past when we took care of our animals.
Absolutely.
Because I don't feel like we really take care of our animals that we are eating.
No, and the local farms do, and we are realizing that is so important. There's been so many documentaries, and I watched a few in the early, millennium 2000, and really just changed my way of thinking and eating. And for me personally, I feel better not eating meat, but I still don't mind preparing meat. I just buy it locally. I buy it organic. I make sure that it's humanely raised. Those are my 3 non-negotiables.
Yeah.
So.
And so when you were growing up, did you say, I want to be in food? Was that your goal?
No. I wanted to be in fashion.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're very fashionable. You look wonderful.
Thank you. I now just go for comfort and basic uniform just because I'm so busy. But no, I wanted to be in fashion, and that's where I kind of started in college, and then moved into psychology and thought I wanted to go to law school. And fight the good fight of whatever that looked like, standing up for something and someone. And then found my way into food in my early 20s. Okay. And for no other reason than it just really started to fascinate me, sort of watching all of the things that were happening with the food industry. And my great-grandparents had a farm, and we spent a lot of time there growing up, so I just had that. And my parents, we ate out very little. My mom was an excellent cook. My dad was an excellent cook, and so we always had really good food in our home. And I think college really turned me on to what was happening in the real world.
Right.
And my little small town, 8,000 people, one stoplight growing up. And,
where'd you grow up?
In northern Michigan. One of the most beautiful places in the world. But I was very fortunate to have really good quality food and to have parents that cooked for me, and it was all really delicious and wonderful. And when I was in college, I went to the University of Maryland, and there was a food co-op, and I fell in love with the co-op and what that stood for. And again, seeing all of, eating fast food like you do in college and late night and just not feeling good, and I'm a very aware person, so I just really started to notice the difference, the shift in weight, the shift in how I felt, the shift in how I felt like I looked because of what I was eating. And so in my early 20s, I really started to do more research and investigate as much as you could back then with the little bit of internet access we had, reading books and whatnot, and newspapers and magazines. And then I got pregnant with my daughter when I was 25, and I read a book by Dr. Andrew Weil, 8 Weeks to Optimum Health. He was my original guru. Still love him. think he's amazing. And I read that book, and he started to talk about, and again, this was in 1995, trans fats and organic and things that I knew about, but I didn't really know about, and it was not easily accessible. And so that was the beginning. And then I really just, from there, I became a personal trainer. I stayed home. I was fortunate to be able to stay home with my kids. And always wanted to do that, and while I did that, I was always studying and working towards something. And so I became a personal trainer. I was doing a lot of triathlon racing, started training friends and turned that into a business. And then with that became nutritional counseling, and then started my juice bar business out of my kitchen.
Wow. What was that called?
So I still have the juice bar. It's Sip Organic Juice Bar. Okay. And I have one. I had four. I have one still in Michigan, in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I've had that for 6 years, which has been wonderful. I sold two, and I ended up closing one last fall when the lease was up, just because I was opening EIO at the same time, and I needed to make some decisions. But I started out of my kitchen because we went through a financial crisis in 2008.
As a lot of people did in 2008.
It was overnight. Yep, absolutely. And we lost everything. And so for me, it was a sink or swim moment of what can I do to contribute to my family. And so I started making my energy bars, which are called Genergy bars, and they're a raw, organic, vegan energy bar. I started making and selling those out of my kitchen, teaching raw, vegan cooking classes out of my kitchen, and I formulated a detox. I'm a big proponent of detoxing. I think we need it more than ever because of the way our food system is, and we intake more than we need to and not all of the right nutrients that we need to. So detoxing is a great way to get back to a clean slate. So I developed a detox, and for a year and a half, I just worked, endlessly out of my kitchen, getting up at 3-4 in the morning, and my kids will tell stories of the blenders going off. As a matter of fact, they both wrote their college essays about that time, which was really kind of fun to have them, see it in a positive light. And so I went from working out of my kitchen to a brick and mortar, and within 2 years, I had 4 locations, which was really fast and furious and awesome. And then
was that able to get you guys out of the hole and in the positive?
It was.
Going?
It was, and it was really interesting because my husband at the time was a real estate developer. And again, if you know anything about 2008 and real estate development, it was a pretty hard crash.
Yep,
and it was we were living in South Florida. We had a home there in Michigan, and we moved back to Michigan to be close to family and friends. And I was fortunate enough to have this big, beautiful kitchen to work out of until we had to sell our home, which was just part of the whole transition. Right. And then my husband developed leukemia, very severe leukemia overnight during that whole time, right when I was opening the juice bar. So I had 2 small kids and a husband with cancer and no money, and
oh my gosh,
was
what
just
amazing.
But it saved my life. It really did. It saved my life, and it saved his life, because he ended up having a stem cell transplant. That was his only way to get well. Chemotherapies wouldn't work on the kind of cancer he had. It came on overnight. It was stress related. His doctors all concurred that it was definitely a stress reaction. His immune system was broken down. And modern medicine was wonderful, but really his doctors and I have talked a lot about it, about how all the nutrients that he was receiving, there were times that he couldn't eat, and the juices and the vegan smoothies and the different things that I was able to make him, really was life-saving for him. So, and we're fortunate to still be friends and have an amicable relationship and 2 beautiful kids. So
so that was giving him life, really, those juices.
Yes.
Keeping him going and giving him the nutrients that he needed. I think people don't realize the power that food has.
Absolutely. And there is an energy to everything we do. We are made up of energy. What we do further creates and perpetuates that energy. So what you put out into the world, if you get up and it's positive, you put that positive out, and whatever you touch. As a matter of fact, when I would make the Genergy bars, and my kids would help me, and I eventually hired people even in my kitchen to help me. It was really the hard rule that it had to be a positive mood. We had to be in a good place to make them. And usually if you weren't in a good place and you came into my kitchen, you really quickly got into one, because there was always music, and it just was always really fun.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
I hope my kids remember this, but every time I'm making food, and I love to cook, I put French music on.
Love that.
I love cooking. It puts me in the mood.
See, that is fantastic. There's a great story, and this is what sort of led me to this kind of thinking, and it's about a perfume company, and I'm paraphrasing, so don't quote me on any of this, but if you research it, you'll find it that, this woman sold her perfume company. It was very successful. She sold it to a bigger company, and they came back to her and said, "We are just not having the success in sales. We need you to come and help and consult." And she said, well, she kind of went through the process, and she said, "You're doing everything right." She said, "But are you playing the music?" And they said, "What are you talking about? What music?"
I'm selling perfume.
Right. Yeah. And she said, "No, you have to play the music. The music is part of the formula."
Oh, wow.
And so they started playing the music, and voila, the perfume is selling. And so it really is about the energy that goes into whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah. So tell me about what you write after your name. It says one body, like I got your email, one body, one life.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I'm showing you on my arm. I believe in it so much that I have it tattooed on my arm.
Yes.
And I really just believe we have this one body for this one life, and it's here for us, and we have to take care of it. And when I first started the journey of health and wellness, I would have people sort of laugh and say, just in fun, "I don't want to live forever. I'd rather smoke my cigarettes and drink my beer." Well, it's not about living forever. It's about living well while you're here.
Yeah.
It's all about quality of life. And we now know that our mind and our bodies are so connected, and that our gut health is our gut is our second brain, and some people even say it's our first brain. Doctors are really, there's a woman who I'm a big fan of, Kulreet Chandra. She's an Indian woman, and she's amazing. She's written a book called The Prime, and I'm a big fan of that. She's a neurologist who's now gone back to practicing Ayurvedic medicine, which her grandfather was an Ayurvedic doctor in India. In any case, the gut health is so important, and so our body is just the foundation of who we are. And if we have a strong body, we have a strong mind, and those two are very interconnected. And if we have a strong body and a strong mind, we can do great things in this one life. So that's I get up and I think every day, I'm grateful for my life, and I'm grateful for the people in my life, and I'm grateful that I feel really strongly that having a strong body is really important to me.
Absolutely. Is that part of your spiritual makeup? What
it is.
Tell me about that. Tell me about your spiritual part of your...
I grew up Catholic, and my mom, I think, I was in middle school maybe, and she started going to a non-denominational church, and we kind of went back and forth, and she let us choose. My dad was very Catholic, and so we would we had a lot of freedom to sort of choose, which was great. And when I was in middle school, I remember having a lot of questions about what is eternity and what is death, and I've had a lot of close people pass away, as we all have, but I've had connections with that. I've always had a connection with people who have died. I've had some sort of conversation with them afterwards. I've been very open.
Okay.
So I'm very spiritual. And I don't talk about it to a lot of people because there's people who understand it and there's people who don't. But I am very spiritual. I feel very connected to the universe. I don't think that there's a right and a wrong. I don't think that there's one religion that's better than the other. I think what's important is that we have a connection to something spiritually. I really practice a Buddhist view. That is my view. If I had to put
a name to
it,
okay.
Which I try not to, but that's the one that I most closely
feel. That looks like something you're comfortable with. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. And so that, and I do. I meditate. I'm a big proponent of meditation, and I think that brings us into a whole different level of spirituality. I'm open to whatever the universe brings to me, and I love having conversations and learning and hearing other people's views. And I'm very non-judgmental about what other people believe, and I feel like I can always learn from it. But really, it's about everyone sort of has their own view on spirituality, but we're all saying the same thing. Most of us are saying the same thing, which is love.
Right.
And if we can have really deep love for one another, that's spirituality.
Yeah. Love your neighbor.
Right.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Right.
And
work like the bees.
Right.
Wouldn't that be awesome? We could all love each other and work like the bees.
That's
or the ants. I always think about ants too. They're really good at.
Right. Do you remember the movie, the ant movie?
Yes.
Kids.
Yeah, of course.
They function much like bees.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's awesome. What's the best business advice you ever got about?
Oh yeah.
Specifically, let's talk about the restaurant business because it's so unique. I mean,
it is unique. It's hard. I laugh a lot and say, surely there are easier ways to make money. There has to be. It's all about passion. It's the best advice I ever got, and it really was business advice, but it was personal advice, and it was when I opened my first juice bar, and it was a man who was very business savvy, and he happened to be my landlord at the time, and he mentored me, and after about a week of being together, he said, Jennifer, I'll give you the best advice you've probably ever gotten. Get out of your own way. And so,
wow.
Here I am saying, look at Jerry, what does that mean? Tell me,
right.
How do I do that?
Right.
And I'm begging him for these answers, and he just laughed, and he said, you just need to meditate on that. And finally one day it hit me, get out of your own way. Trust that other people can do the things that you can do, and be okay with giving up that control.
Yeah.
So for me, it's been, I'm a perfectionist. I have control issues, which I think most entrepreneurs do.
Right.
But accepting 80% is good.
It's good enough.
Good.
Yeah.
It'll never quite be good enough, but it's good.
But it's good, and it'll work.
Yeah. And that's really and trusting that other people's ideas are as good as yours, and that's really a big thing, because who am I to say, taking the ego out of it, who am I to say that my ideas, and there are some things that it's like, no, I know this works. I really do. I feel in my heart of hearts that this works, but there's a lot of things that I feel like that I know they work, but someone else has a different way, and as long as we can get to the same end result. Absolutely. Yeah. So it's
hard though. I'm like you. I'm like, an entrepreneur at heart, and it's hard to let some of those things just kind of like someone else take the reins on it, because it's like you've got the vision, and are you a big picture person?
I'm a big picture person, but I'm very, very OCD about the detail as well.
Okay.
And so that's what makes it hard for me, is I see the devil's in the detail. Mm-hmm. And it is really important, but ultimately to get to the big picture, the details have to be right.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some details that don't have to be 100%.
Right.
Or that maybe one person's 100% to me looks like 80%, and who am I to say that that's not 100%, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
So
to them it is. Yeah.
Absolutely. And
yeah, that's good. That's good advice. Get out of your way.
Yeah, I thought that was. It took me a minute to figure it out, but once I did, it was very freeing. You know, and I remind myself of that often when I get back in that rut of, no, I'm going to take this back over because I think I can do it better. You can't grow as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. You can't grow if you're trying to control every detail.
Yeah.
You have to trust that other people can do it as well, and it's about leadership and expressing and helping people understand your vision, and then helping foster leadership within your organization.
And there's a threshold of how you can advance by giving up some of that.
Yes.
Otherwise, because you're only one person.
Absolutely.
And you're not going to work 80, 90, I mean, you might have, or might seem like 80, 90 hours a week.
I probably still do. But I'm doing, but I'm advancing into other areas that I want to be able to grow into, because I'm allowing other people to do the things that I am not able to, don't have time to, and I'm willing to give up.
Yeah. What's next for Jennifer?
Oh, yeah, that's fun. My Genergy bar has been my baby, and I'm looking at some opportunities to grow that business. EIO is 8 months old, and we still have a long way to go in terms of feeling like it's where I want it to be. It has been so wonderful, and the community has embraced it, and we have been so fortunate to have the success that we've had to date, but there's always room to continue to go up, and so that's what we're looking at. My juice bar business is still very successful. I've got some opportunities to open more of those.
Oh, wow.
So that's really
awesome.
And I've started to do some actually leadership and wellness coaching. So it really all falls under the umbrella of wellness, and which is what I do. So it's just one day at a time.
Yeah, that's exciting. Very exciting. So what are you just loving these days?
As far
as like books or like any kind of like things that you're loving.
Well, I'm telling you, the Prime book, and I'm a wellness junkie, so the Prime, Kulreet Chandra, is wonderful. I really recommend it. She prefaces it as a weight loss book, and if I listened to a podcast before I read the book, and it really is much more, but she knew that would sell. And it is about weight loss for people who need to lose weight. By healing your gut and your digestive tract, you will naturally lose weight, but it's more about healing, and she talks about different mental illnesses that, depression and anxiety and even autoimmune disorders. And after reading it, and with my background that I've studied, it makes a lot of sense. So I really am loving that. My favorite, I know we talked a little bit earlier about apps. My favorite app is Calm, which is a meditation app. I absolutely love it. You can track your meditation. There's all different kinds of guided meditations or different music you can listen to while you're meditating. So you can do guided or not, timed. And then it's fun because it tracks it on the calendar for you, so you can see how many days in a row or how much time you've meditated. So that's my favorite app. I have a great new face oil that I'm in love with. It's by a company called Ebb and Flow out of or Nevada. I can't quite remember. But it's just two women, and they're really fantastic. Ebb and Flow, and it's this hemp and hibiscus face oil. And that is really, yes. And this, and it's a hemp-based oil, and it smells really nice, and it absorbs nicely into my skin. I feel like I get lots of compliments, and people will say your skin is glowing, and I think it's the green juice and the hemp and hibiscus oil. So that's one of my favorite new products. So those are a few of my favorites right now.
Well, besides EIO, where do you go to eat in Nashville?
Well, so my favorite restaurant, because I have a sentimental attachment to it, is the Southern Steak and Oyster.
Is that the one downtown?
It is.
Okay.
It is, yes. It's part of the Tom Morales group. So that is my favorite. Fin and Pearl, if you're a fish if you're a fish lover, the sustainability piece to that is amazing.
Really?
Yeah, so they do, and again, that's another Tom Morales restaurant. It's sustainable seafood, and they do a beautiful, beautiful job. They order from a lot of local farms, their produce and whatnot, and then you can actually trace the seafood back to the boat that it came off of.
That's awesome.
In the Gulf, yeah. So they do a beautiful job with that. So I tend to frequent places that have a sustainability component, that have a local component. I'm really a big proponent of local. I really believe in, I know it's an idealist view, but if we could all live and work and spend money in a 10-mile radius, what a different world we would be living in, and what a more supportive, and because the world gives us everything we need right in our 10-mile radius.
Yeah. And I think about that book. Did you ever read Barbara Kingsolver's book? And I cannot remember the name of it.
Yes, and I know exactly which one. That's probably where
the whole year.
The Prodigal Summer. Was that what it was? Was it the Prodigal Summer?
It was either that, or it had like herbs and plants and something.
Yes.
It had like
I read
a list
all
of
her books.
And she did that, and I was like, wow. So she's not eating unless there's eggs nearby, or unless there's honey nearby, or there's a cow.
And I do believe that. I believe that every region has exactly what we need, and we import all of these things because it's fun and we can, but we certainly don't need to.
Right.
And so, because we have all the vitamins and minerals and nutrients, if we treat our soil right, and if we're growing what we can within our region, we'll find, Mother Nature knew exactly what she was doing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for letting me come into your beautiful place and hear your story. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been fun, and I appreciate the time.
Wow, what a great lady. I mean, she has so much love and depth and compassion, and she really puts her whole self into her work and the food that she's serving and just life in general. I just loved meeting her and connecting with her. I hope you did too. And if you were ever in Nashville, swing by and try some of their kombucha. It was delicious. And I have to tell you all that after this interview, she sent me home with some chicken and these awesome sides. I squealed because I'm living my best life, interviewing and getting fed my two favorite things. It was great. I hope you get to try some of that. Again, today's show was sponsored by the Amazon store, my Amazon store, and music is by Ben Sound at bensound.com. Thanks for listening, and keep rising in your story.